Welcome to the box, people. So we are here, and today we have a good friend of ours, Kelly, who we like to refer to as Master Kelly. Not that she's a master, but we like to give her props at all times. Kelly is a friend of ours, but she is also a master in Taekwondo. I am nowhere near being a master, but the Taekwondo thing, her and I definitely have in common. She's also a big fan of Ian, which we've talked about before, but she also writes and sings, and we'll be linking all that stuff up into the podcast for you so you could check her out. Not with us today is Tina. She's feeling a bit under the weather, so we're wishing her healing thoughts and that she'll be back soon. So anyway, but Kelly, Master Kelly, so you are on vacation. So tell us, Master Kelly, what did you do with your very first day on vacation?
Irony, I worked. Sort of. Yeah, I'm supposed to be on vacation, and this is one of the things where I'm doing this. I'm glad my boss doesn't really actively search social media via Twitter, because I'm supposed to be on break, but I'm not. I am still technically working because we have our after school program starting next week. And yeah, too much to do. It's too much to do. We had to hire new drivers. We had to organize some membership stuff. So it's like, okay, yeah, fun.
So Kelly, you're from Canada, right?
Yes.
Okay, so does that mean, I just caught on to that, because your after school program starts next week. Does that mean school doesn't start for your kids until next week?
Yeah, actually, because I know in the States, a lot of people, they start in August.
Yeah.
But here in Canada, we start in September. So most of our kids, they're doing a staggered start through the first week for different grades. So if you're in JK or SK or something, you're not starting until the 8th. Everybody else, I think, starts on the 7th. And then it kind of does a progressive intro the first week into classrooms. And then the next week is when everybody goes back full tilt.
Now, does that have to do with COVID, or is that just how you guys always do things?
That's definitely COVID. That's definitely COVID. It used to be everybody started on the first day right after Labor Day. Now it's more along the lines of they want to get certain kids into the classroom first to get them exposed to what they're going to be doing, how they have to wear masks all day, and then get them set into like kind of their sections, and then they just bring in the rest. So the older kids aren't too difficult with, but the younger ones, it's new for them. So yeah.
Right. Yeah. It's such a big thing. So when kids go to school, it's always this, especially for parents. I think it's harder on the parents sometimes. So when Tyler went to school the first day, I was a wreck. Okay. Like here I'm walking Tyler up to the fence. And, when I was a kid, they didn't have fences around school. You just walked up onto campus. It was no big deal. But for his first day of school, I take him and he goes into this little area. And he let go of my hand, and this kid ran because the day before had been orientation. So he knew right where he was supposed to line up. The little straps on the backpack were hitting the ground as he was running. That's how little my baby was. And I'm standing at the fence like, and I was to this day, I get brokenhearted when he starts school, because it's like another year closer to him being like, I'm an adult, I'm out of here. Right. And so I was crushed, and next to me is another woman, and she's bawling, and we turn and look at each other like about the same time, and she goes, is that your last baby? And I'm like, that's my Tyler. And she's like, my Paris just started school. And then we laughed about that because the day before in orientation, we had seen that Paris and Tyler were going to sit together. So I was like, I guarantee you Paris is going to be this kid's first girlfriend. And sure enough, in kindergarten, they were boyfriend and girlfriend. So Tyler and Paris,
start early.
So
I don't remember my first day of school, but I definitely remember meeting my first teacher, because I went to a Catholic school for the first 5 years, and it was really funny because we went there early, and this was like a school that was outside of where we normally were, so it took a trek to get there. But it was really funny
to get to school.
More like a trek. It was like a trek to get there. It was a train. That'd be pretty cool. The Polar Express. We should definitely take the Polar Express to school. Yes, give me Tom Hanks serving me hot cocoa any day. And yeah, I met my first teacher, and I remember, it's not my proudest moment, but I remember I stole an eraser. It was a rubber apple eraser to give to her on the first day of school. So yeah, that's my thieving days.
So did you steal it from another student?
They left it on the desk and I didn't think anything of it at the time. I was like 5 years old. I was like, sure.
That is awesome.
Terrible person right here.
And now you're a master, Kelly. And as we know, Taekwondo has everything to do with integrity, right? So,
oh yeah, I didn't start that until I was 8. So that was yeah. I had to learn those skills.
You remember at 8 years old that you started focusing on integrity?
Oh sure. Well, actually, I started a little bit sooner than that. Did you guys ever see the Three Ninjas?
No.
It was my first exposure to martial arts. I was watching the Three Ninjas.
All right. Well, Tina's feeling better and she's here. So welcome to Tina. Okay. So continue on this.
I was watching the Three Ninjas. It came out. I don't remember what it came out in 1980 something or 1990 something. Really cute movie. These three brothers taught by their grandfather how to do what do they call? Oh, ninjutsu. Yeah. And I remember for like a straight year after that, bouncing on my mother's bed, doing all these like tricks and kicks. And she kept telling me, she's like, you're going to break the frame. I'm like, no, I'm fine. And I'd be like, kick, 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 fall off, huge bruise on my hip, get back on, do it again. And my grandparents had a trampoline at the time. So that was really good to practice on. And then by the time I was 8, so that was like when I was 5. And then by the time I was 8, there was this newspaper flyer that came out, and it was for Master Kim's Taekwondo, and it had this big picture of Master Kim, and he's standing there like this, and me, being the typical 8-year-old, took a marker and drew a mustache and horns and stuff on him. But my dad noticed and thought, well, let's give it a try. And I think we won like a 3-month membership to start. Did that, and I was hooked. I was hooked for life, and that was it. And yeah, just been doing it ever since. I've got 25 years of martial arts experience under my belt now.
I did not realize that it had been 25 years, Kelly. That's awesome. Way to go. Yeah. So I have a question for you then. So we know that weapons is a big thing in Taekwondo. Do you have a favorite weapon that you use?
My favorite, I like sharp objects, definitely for sure, but my favorite to perform with is a bow staff. Like I like knives, I love swords. Nunchucks are fine. It wasn't my favorite when I started, but I got a lot more into it. But my favorite is a bow staff. And actually, oh, hold on, I got one. This one's like a short one, but it's kind of like a trick staff, and you just you play with it. And you can go over, you can flip it, you can do all sorts of fun stuff with it. But yeah, bow staff was definitely my favorite to perform with.
That's awesome, Kelly. Now, when you did your black belt testing, how many weapons did you have to use in order to pass?
My first one, so we have, as you will know, in Taekwondo, you've got levels of black belts. When you hit black, kind of like karate or many other martial arts, when you hit black, it's never the end. It's more of like a progression into an application stage where you're truly learning how to apply what you've learned from your color belts up. So when I did my first POOM, because I was 12 at the time, we had to do, it was 2 days of testing. So we did a conditioning day, and then we did a full curriculum day where we had to do all these patterns, all these sparring forms and everything else like that. But weaponry wasn't a key thing for your first POOM, because it was more looking at everything that you'd done before. When I went for my second, that's when it really started to apply into weapons. So we had to do bow staff. We had to do, it's called a short stick. It's technically one of the only legal weapons you can carry. It's about a stick that long. Like a baton almost, and it's got a small hole in the bottom, and you can tie a string to it, so it works kind of like a half nunchuck, and you can flip it back, and it works really well. So we had to do that one, and then you also had to do knife defense as part of your testing for both second dan and third dan, and then fourth and fifth opens it up a little bit more, because you have the opportunity to truly learn other weapons and apply it, but you have to kind of go and find the weapons you want to learn a little bit more and choose the masters you want to learn from, because it's a little bit more independent in your learning at that point. But yeah, I pretty much locked into bow staff, locked into sword. There's a whole bunch of sword patterns you can learn. And then I started having a lot of fun with throwing knives. That's the fun part.
Now, what's the worst thing that's ever happened when you were throwing a knife?
I dropped it through my shoe. It never was too bad. I didn't puncture my foot, but I certainly left a nice little divot in my foot, but it healed over nicely and there wasn't a scar. But that's when I started working with slightly lighter knives, because at the time I didn't realize that when you start doing kind of anything with throwing knives, you do want to work with a practice first. So something like a wood base, or there's a good tool you can use. It's polypropylene plastic. It's like this guy. So this guy it's actually weighted pretty much very similarly to a knife. It's a little heavier on the handle end, so it's a little bit, but if you kind of go like that, you should be able to kind of find the base balance. This one's a little heavier on the end, but it's there. And the same things. You'd want to practice with something like that. I didn't do that initially. So when I went right to blades, that was very dumb of me. Don't do that at home, children. And I did. I dropped it right into my shoe. And it's funny because when I came back, I went home and my mother's like, why has your shoe got blood on it? And I'm like, nothing, no reason. Everything's fine. Go upstairs, clean my foot. It was good. Healed up within about a week, and it was fine. But after that, always practice with wood and plastic first. And then I shifted over back to something that was slightly lighter, more like this. So that was a little bit closer to what you wanted as a throwing knife. Yeah.
But that's a real knife right there. The one you just had in your hand.
Yeah, it's a real one.
I don't think I've ever seen a knife that thin. And then you're going to cut your finger off on the podcast. So that's going to be great.
Nah, you flip it and you're good. You just kind of go like that. You grab it around the base, but you hold it very much like you would a cutting knife a lot of the time. So when you do a cutting knife, most people hold a cutting knife improperly. They hold it from the handle and then they kind of lock in here. But when you use a throwing knife, you actually you want to use your finger and your thumb as your base control. And it's the same thing. So I can flip it back here and hold it by the edge, or I can move my hand down and hold it here.
That's awesome, Kelly. Good for you, man. How old were you when you first started using the knives?
17, I think.
Okay, so you weren't little, because
yeah.
I was picturing you still jumping up and down on the bed, right? And then with the knives in your hand.
No, when I was little, I was focused more on bow staff and sword. Bigger swords are actually a lot easier to control than smaller knives. It's interesting how that works.
Yeah, the swords are awesome to use. That is fun training, as long as everyone's really, away from each other and not too close, right? So
yeah, I mean, you start with something like kendo swords or wooden swords, and you hit each other with them. You don't mind. And then when you actually pull out a blade, it's very rare that you'll practice with a blade in like a classroom setting. You'll do that more outside in like a field or somewhere that you're not likely going to chop each other's arms off.
Yeah, that's always good. Yeah, that's good. I never wanted Tyler coming home without arms, so that's a good thing. So tell us about you and fan fiction, because you write a lot. So tell us about your writing.
Well, I do write a lot. I haven't written a lot of fan fiction. Actually, it was a special request by a friend to start writing fan fiction. And thank you. I hadn't ever kind of dipped my toe into that before. I used to read fan fiction all the time, but I'd never written it. And I just kind of went, all right, I'm going to give it a try. And based on what I've heard feedback from people leaving comments is I don't write typical fan fiction. It's a little different. It seems to be written a little bit more like a novel. And I think that's because I've only ever written novels before. Right. So I'm going, okay, I'll just give this a whirl and see how it goes. And I seem to have a little bit of a following. I have to update it. I'm sorry, I'm slow, but I'm in the middle of, well, not the middle, but I'm more at the tail end of doing my master's diploma in osteopathy right now. So it's a little crazy, but I hopefully will have a chapter out this week. But it's kind of a Marcus Kane centralized fanfic around the 100 series. And then, yeah, it flips back and forth between a couple worlds or a couple places, I guess. And yeah, it's fun. It's more fantasy sci-fi.
Yeah, you're really good at writing sci-fi, right? Like that's your thing.
Sci-fi. This was when I first kind of dipped majorly into sci-fi. I kind of focus a lot more on fantasy. Think things like Mortal Instruments, or actually one of my favorite authors is Peter V. Brett, and he wrote the Demon Cycle series, which is kind of post-apocalyptic world with demons and magic. And I'm just like, it's awesome.
Kelly, now you mentioned writing a novel. Like, so have you published a novel? Are you working on a novel? Like what's going on with that?
So I haven't published yet. My friend and I have been working on this thing for a while. I'm kind of the primary writer, and the two of us have been building this world for this. This is where I go pretty much since I was 19. We've been kind of building this story. And the problem is that when we started it, we never considered actually writing it down initially, or we thought about it as a fan fiction first. I think it was born originally as like a fan fiction out of Harry Potter, and then took its own complete turn. But yeah, I've been working on that one for quite a while, but unfortunately not consistently. It's kind of been on off between school and work and everything else. And right now, like I have the manuscript script around here somewhere, and I keep needing to go back and do its final edit, and then I can publish it. But it's like, oh, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work to get a novel kind of like ready for publishing, as opposed to just writing it. The writing is actually the easy part, because you're just like, okay, word vomit onto the page, let's go. Once you have your ideas down, it's out, you're good. But no, the editing part is always hard, especially when you're a perfectionist. And I'm definitely a perfectionist with my writing. My friend Carrie, who's kind of my co-author on that, just hates me for that reason.
Yeah, well, you can't beat yourself up, because I will guarantee you that when you do publish something, there will be mistakes in it. And you can't beat yourself up. And the crazy part is you will get people to call you and go, I found a mistake on page 86. And you're just going to have to roll with it and be like, well, thanks for telling me, did you like the book? Like, so just be prepared for that. But you are very talented, Kelly. And I think that you could do anything with your writing. So I do hope you continue with it.
I think one of the funniest things would be if I had someone call me up and go, oh, I found a mistake on page 86. I'm like, actually, that's part of the secret cryptic key. And if you start following the mistakes, you'll maybe find something. I should do that on purpose.
That would be amazing.
Across, because it's a series, right? So we have the first one pretty much done. And then the problem is, when we originally thought of the ideas, we didn't think of them as books. We just started thinking them out in rapid succession. Then we had to try and separate them into books. And now we're like, so we have about 5 planned. Now we just have to write them.
Good for you. That's amazing. So you also sing, right? Like, you're very talented.
Those expressions your parents say when they're like, oh, you ran before you could walk, or you danced before you could walk, sort of thing. And same thing. My mother was like, you sang before you could talk. I'm going, okay. So I started singing very, very young, but the difference is my mother has this habit of having no control over her facial expressions. So as a child, you don't really understand the concept of a flat note. So when I'd be singing, just ridiculous little songs, whether they were kid songs or not. I still remember songs from when I was a kid, like from the Care Bears 2 movie. It's ridiculous. But my mother, if I hit a flat note, would do this really awful kind of face. And I'm going, oh, that wasn't very good, was it? And she would just kind of do that every time. And I think it was that negative reinforcement on top of me going, okay, I have to be better than this, or my mother's going to keep giving me that face. So I got better.
I think that's amazing, Kelly, because most people, I think if that happens, especially if they're young, I think they tend to shy away from working on that skill, because like they kind of feel like it's rejection or embarrassment or whatever it is. And so it's amazing that instead you took that and were like, oh, I'm going to be better.
I think that was probably ingrained in me very young, even with any skill. I definitely came across in martial arts as well, but I've noticed that in my life, I have no problem with embarrassment. I will fall on my butt and get back up. I'll be covered in mud. Like, I've run Tough Mudders, and I've been dunked underneath the mud wall, and I'll come out and I'm just like covered in mud. Like my running buddy Marina and her mother used to come along, and I'd come out just covered in mud. I couldn't see anything, and she'd come over with those those wipes, like those baby wipes, and go, here, just give me your face, and it would just clean this part, and the rest of me would look like a muddy demon. It was wonderful. But I mean, yeah, even in martial arts, you have times where you'll go to kick high and your bottom leg doesn't want to stay there and just goes and you drop. And I've done that in the classroom where I've got up and I'm teaching like a class of 50 people, and I'll get up and go, that happens at least once a year. I guarantee it to anyone.
Right.
You got to kind of roll with it. It's like, embarrassment is never a thing you should really be ashamed of. It's more like a learning experience.
That's good. It's great that you see it like that. That's amazing. So when you were doing, well, you still do martial arts, obviously, but how did you get involved in being an instructor and then to a master? Like how did that happen for you?
So because I started when I was 8, and the belt system, there are all about 11 belts from white belt to black. By the time I tested for my second one, I'd already kind of gained the attention of, it was the master's second daughter at the time. Her name was Grace. and they had a demo team going on at the school, and there was usually a senior demo team and a junior demo team, and I got invited out to try out for it. I went, okay, sure, I'll give it a try. I showed up, and most of it was me warming up with the team, and then I kind of watched what they were doing because they were preparing for a performance. I didn't realize that at that point I'd actually already made the team. So she was talking about inviting everybody out on Sunday to do the last kind of prep for the 2 weeks performance they were doing in the future. And my dad got a call on Sunday going, why isn't Kelly here? I'm going, oh, I didn't realize I'd made the team. I'm like, okay, so demo team was kind of where it started for me, because Grace, she wasn't a master at the time, she was my instructor, one of my primary instructors. She'd always make me do this thing where each belt level I tested, she'd make me go back and work with the junior belts below me first before she taught me my new stuff. So I would basically always be kind of like showing it and showing it and showing it. And as I went up the line and up the levels, it didn't matter. That was the same system. And then she left when I was a second Dan. But at that point, I was already doing assisting in classes and assisting in testings and coaching at tournaments and all these things. So it kind of just progressed to that point. Additionally, when I was very young, she had said this at the start of a class one time. She goes, a lot of people will quit at black belt. They'll make it to black belt and they'll say, that's it, I'm done, and they'll quit. And she said, like, never try just to be a black belt, be more. And so even as a kid, I decided in my head, I don't want to be a black belt, I want to be a master. And with that understanding, I knew that's like, okay, as a master, you're not just a wealth of knowledge, you have to pass that knowledge on. It's important that you do that. It's the same concept the teachers have. They want to help, they want to teach, they want to kind of bring the next generation up. So that was pretty much how I went from like white belt through instructor to master. So yeah.
That's a lot of work. Like for you to do all that and to have that dedication it definitely speaks about the perseverance, with the 5 tenets of Taekwondo. Like, I think that's remarkable that you've been able to come this far, and people do it, but like most people, there's a lot of people that never get past, like, say, a purple belt, like that's their goal. They just want to be able to get to sparring. And then I picture you just being so little and being like, I'm going to do this. And you just kept going and going and going. And that's impressive, Kelly.
Yeah. And we started competing very young. So I think my first tournament I went to, I was a yellow belt. I didn't even understand what sparring was at that point, but I signed up for it. And I remember I did the pattern competition first, and then I'm watching the people who are doing sparring. And my dad is standing behind me going, you okay? I'm going, I don't think I know what I'm doing. Which I didn't. And it was the first time that I kind of bailed out of something, because I kind of went, I'm not feeling well, I can't do this. And plus, I didn't realize what I was signing up for. So I didn't even have the gear to protect me. So my dad was like, oh, okay, well, we'll see what we have to do that next time. And we left. And my master, when I went to the next class, he went, oh, you went to the tournament, how did it go? I was like, oh, I didn't do very well in patterns, and I didn't do sparring because I wasn't sure what to do. And he went, oh, okay, well, we will work on that. And he pulls this itty bitty little trophy off of a shelf. It was this green trophy about this big. He goes, here you go. Like, and I never want to perpetuate the idea of like getting a trophy for free, but it was more like that little moment of just like, yeah, you failed, but you know what? We're happy that you went. We're happy that you represented, even if you fell flat on your face. I'm going, oh, thank you. And I did better for the future going forward, because now I knew what a tournament was. It was more like getting exposed to it, getting that experience. And we tell that to our students all the time. It's kind of like, you don't need to go and win your first time out. You need to go and do the best you can. But if it's your first tournament, there's going to be a whole bunch of hurdles you've never seen before. So it's important to get that across to them. And then I don't remember where my original train of thought was going to with this question, but
that's
tournament.
Okay, Kelly.
Yay!
We're just glad you're here. So out of all these things you do, from being a master to a writer to, singing and being great at it, do you have a favorite of one of these things?
No. The only way I could really fill that in properly is to tell this story. When I was 5, my grandmother, my mom's mom, had asked me what I wanted to be when I grew up. And I said, a ninja. She proceeded to tell me they don't exist. So I wanted to prove her wrong. But in the back of my mind, I always had this idea of like, oh, you need a backup. You can't just be a ninja. I'm going, yeah, sure I can. But so even at a very young age, I wrote my first little book when I was 5. It was this little story about a star that fell from the sky and fell into a mine shaft. Illustrated by me as well, and it looked absolutely horrible. I really wish I'd kept it, but I think I tossed it. You know, when you're a kid and you take paper and you cut it in half and then you fold it in half and you staple the ends and go, there's my first book. I had one of those like sticky pictures of myself that I stuck to the back and did like a little bio, like, this is Kelly. It was so stupid. But even at a very young age, I was like, okay, yeah, it's like, I want to be a writer. I want to be a ninja. And the other thing that I wanted to be is I wanted to be a doctor. And more as you get older, you start to streamline that according to like what you actually believe, what you want to focus on, things like that. So I'm a master in martial arts. I will be a published writer, that's for sure. And I'm currently doing my master's in osteopathy. So that it's all working out. It just has to take a little bit of time to get there. So I'm very happy. Yeah.
You should be very impressed with yourself and all you've accomplished, Kelly. So, but let's move on to more important things. Let's talk about your cat.
Leo, where are you, hon?
Your cat kills me because normally if you're sitting in the other room, it'll just cry behind you.
Yeah, she does that. Actually, give me 2 seconds. I want to see where she is. Where'd she go? Oh, hello, Cleo. Say hi to the fans. Hello.
That is a perfect cat for Halloween, Kelly.
Oh, I know, she'd be witching. But yes, this is Cleo. She is the pain in my butt.
I don't think that's
adorable.
true.
Actually, the best part is like you can even see she's like latching her claws in right into my shirt. So anytime I hold her, I need to wear either a shirt or a sweater. If I don't, I end up with these massive claw marks. Hey, you want to come down? You gotta put the paw down. Yeah, there you go. And you know
what I love about cats is that they don't care. And so Tyler has this cat. I've talked about this cat before, Cheech. But Cheech does not care. Cheech will be nice to you for 1 second and then will turn around and beat up one of the dogs. And these dogs are huge compared to this cat. And this cat does not care. It's not even phased that he's so mean. And I'm like, Tyler, this is definitely your cat. Like, there's no getting around it. It is your cat. Like, you know, so do you feel like your cat has a little bit of your personality?
Oh, she definitely does. Her and her sister. So my sister and I, we got her and her sister in 2007. And you know how they say dogs resemble their owners?
Yes.
It works the same way for cats. So Cleo has always been a little bit of a bigger cat, much stronger. Definitely loves her food. She at one point was a 22-pound cat. She's not anymore. She's super healthy now. But she was very, very big and always kind of like, you touch my food, I'm going to beat the crap out of you. Right. Whereas her sister, who I want to clarify is named after the Egyptian god, not the terrorist group. Her name is Isis. And she was always much smaller. She was more like the runt. So much smaller, very timid, which was kind of how my sister started out. She's not that way anymore. And Isis is getting better too, because Isis now lives with a giant German Shepherd dog. So it's like, okay, well, you have to get used to the dog at some point. So come out and see it. Otherwise, she hides in her room all the time. But yeah, they both kind of took on our personalities. And Cleo very much is, oh, there she goes. Yep, here we go. So Cleo likes to sleep. Likes her food, and generally will take no crap from anyone. It's like, okay. But if I'm having like a get together or something over here, she will make herself right the center of attention, especially if there's a plate of food anywhere near you. She'll crawl across your shoulder, she'll crawl across your lap, and she'll just kind of stare at you and be like, I see that you have food. If you have food, you must share. Like,
right. Yeah, I have a dog who will stand up on its back legs. And it's the cutest freaking thing. Yeah, and sometimes he'll do it when I don't have anything near me, and I'm like, I don't even know what you're asking me for right now. So yeah. Normally lately I've just been taking it that he needs a potty break, and I'll take him outside. But so, you know, Kelly, is there anything else you'd like to talk about today on the show? Because we love to hear about anything you have to say.
Oh, I don't know. I'm so happy to be here with my lovely box people.
Well, speaking of that, why don't you explain how you came to meet Lulu, Tina, and myself?
I guess I can kind of thank the pandemic a little bit for that, which is really weird when you say that, considering the pandemic is horrible. But I actively hadn't been on Twitter for probably about 7 years, and ended up kind of, I would scroll through the timeline, but I wouldn't really tweet or like or anything. It was just kind of more like a news feed for me, which was funny using Twitter as a news feed, because I wouldn't say it's exactly the most viable piece of information you can get. But I remember, I think it was, what was it? The pandemic kind of hit. We closed down in March. I think it was the next couple of weeks. I started scrolling through Twitter, and I found things related to Ian Cusick that I kind of went, oh, you know what? I'll just start liking them. And I think I was liking like some posts and some videos, and people started following me back. But I didn't understand the concept of, if someone follows you, the etiquette on Twitter is to generally follow them back. So I didn't do that, and they ended up unfollowing me. And then I was like, okay, maybe we'll try this again, sort of thing. So again, I started like liking things and commenting on things, and I ended up with a whole bunch of like new followers from the 100 fandom and from artistic sites and things like that. And I'm like, okay, well, I'll talk to some of these people. But I mean, that's how I met Tina. And then I got introduced to Sunny, of course, Sunshine. And then actually Lulu was probably the funniest one. She slid into my DMs one day to comment on one of my YouTube videos. She just kind of went, I really like this video, do more. I was like, okay.
That's awesome. And then from there on, you just were talking to everybody here and there, right?
Yeah, pretty much. Like I'm super open and friendly across social media. Like I really don't have a problem with generally with anyone, which is good. At the same point, it's nice to kind of see the relationships forming over social media, because it's one of the things that's what social media was originally kind of there for, to reach out and be able to communicate with people, as opposed to destroying everyone in sight, like the people hide behind their keyboards and just kill people. It's like, no, don't do that. It's like, be open, be available, be ready. And then so I gotta kind of thank Twitter in the pandemic for introducing me to all these bunch of people. I now have friends on every continent, and it's absolutely fantastic, because prior to the pandemic I had only 2 continents that I had really friends on. So this is better.
Let's not talk about what I wanted to ask you, Kelly, is how it was to be on Justin Heyer's talent show.
Oh my God. That was fun. That was a lot of fun. It was very nerve-wracking, because it was kind of the first time I'd performed virtually, I guess you could say. And my sister and my cousin both were on the show with me, just in a different order. My sister ended up, I think, being the first one. And so she ended up figuring out all the technical difficulties beforehand. And so I was very sorry for her, because she was absolutely phenomenal as well. So she can sing as well, and she's absolutely amazing.
Robin?
Yeah, Robin. And she ended up having all these technical difficulties where like the mic glitched out and everything. And we're like, but it helped me when it got to me, because I basically went, okay, I'm just going to sing to my phone. So I had my phone set up instead of the microphone and did that. But it was a different experience to kind of meet his day one crew. They're hilarious.
You did a great job. We watched you live, I remember.
I remember that. I remember people were commenting on that, and it's funny because you're only on for like 5-6 minutes, and then you get to kind of sign off, and you realize the entire time when you sign off, you've been almost holding your breath the entire time. Yeah. And like, click, and then I kind of like just sat back and went.
Do you want to sing now?
Now? Oh God.
I mean, we're gonna link your YouTube channel and all that, but.
I'll tell you what, I have an alternative, because I am posting videos this week. I've been making a few videos, so I'll just post those instead. It's one of those things where I'm like, oh my God, singing live. Let me just no pressure. I wanted to ask you too, how are things in Canada, COVID wise? Well, we made it through our second lockdown when we reopened during the summer. And it's tricky. It's kind of, you have to walk this line between what's allowed and what you have to do in order to survive, in order to work, in order to do things. But I mean, right now, I know the numbers in the States are spiking with the Delta variant. We also are getting spikes more in Western Canada right now than anywhere else. But I mean, the vaccination rollout kind of hit a stall point where people who were vaccinated at that point, like, were vaccinated, and then you still have those other people that are very much like, I'm not going to get it, I'm not going to get it. But At the same point, now government and businesses are starting to make it mandatory. It's like, if you're not vaccinated, then you're not allowed to come in. And technically speaking, I mean, that's walking a very fine line, but it is their mandate to do that. So it's, at the same point, you agree, because you want to say, okay, I get that it's your right to say no to a vaccine. Of course, it's your right, especially if it's based on a medical condition or something like that. Because I have a family that I teach that has several medical conditions in their families, and they very much have gone like, well, we are kind of immunocompromised already. We don't want to take the risk with a new vaccine that we're not completely aware of yet, especially when it hasn't gone through massive testing. So you're like, okay, I get it. At the same point, if you're just saying no for the sake of saying no, then why should I put my health at risk for you? It's like, that's kind of the issue when you get to walk that line a little bit, because I understand it. Yes, it's your right to say no, but it's also my right not to be anywhere near you. And it's also my right to say no to you coming into my building and putting anybody else at risk who potentially is immunocompromised or potentially is below the age where they can get that. Because I teach a lot of kids. And if it hits one of them, not only do we have to close as a school, but then it affects their family, it affects their school, their normal day. And especially for a lot of kids that have gone through this pandemic, who have started growing up through this pandemic, it's very difficult for them to even socially engage because they've never done it before. And so they're doing it very late in life in comparison to when they normally would have done before. Normally you start socializing your kid by the age of like 2, like their play dates, and they're in like daycare setups and things like that, but they didn't have that. This young group didn't have that. So we do have some spikes happening right now in certain areas of Canada. At the same point, they're not as bad, obviously, as in the States or in Brazil or in India or things like that. So I mean, I think we have it under control. At least I knock on wood, I want to say that I think we have it under control, but at the same point, it's a virus, and viruses are constantly mutating and constantly changing. And it's, if you look at, I don't want to compare it to the common cold because obviously it's a lot more infectious than the common cold, but the common cold has like 170 different variants each year. And the flu vaccine, like the flu versus the flu vaccine only immunizes for one of them. It's usually the top one from the previous year. So
I love how you're like a walking Google. We're coming towards the end. I wanted to see if Lulu had any questions. Lulu, did you?
I just have one question. Yeah, I just wanted to know, like, how she choose a song, like the song you sing, like if you have like something to choose them, or like you just like choose a song because you love it, or like there is like a specialty that makes you choose the song.
So I will pretty much sing anything and everything. Usually it's, I've heard it and I kind of go, oh, I'd like to do that. Usually either the lyrics or the melody catches me. I do pick a lot of my favorites. I love Pink, so I would probably do her entire album collection if I didn't think that would be overdoing it a little bit. But I mean, I'll pick male singers, female singers, ensemble casts. It doesn't really matter. I kind of like the songs and then I just go with that. I use an online audio stripping program that basically strips the lyrics out, and I'll play it in the background, or I'll do it a cappella and I'll just sing it myself if it doesn't work that way. But yeah, so it usually depends on the music as well. So if it's a low, kind of lower key that I can't quite sing at, I'll either go an octave above it and try and match it, or I'll cut out the music completely and I'll just sing it a cappella. But that's generally how I do it. I don't actively try and pick key songs, which is why every time I think I've had a couple people mention it to me, it's like, you need to do more modern songs, and I'm going, but I don't necessarily like modern music. It's like, give me some good rock and roll, give me some but at the same point, I'm like, I'll sing anything from rap to opera. I mean, I've done Phantom of the Opera a couple times. I've done I think I did Linkin Park at one point. So it's like, yeah, it's all these like random bands and random musicians. It's fun.
All right, well, we are coming to an end. Kelly, we want to thank you for your time today. It's absolutely such a pleasure to talk to you, and we thank you for being here. All right, Kelly, thank you for being here. And as for us, box people, out.